About right.
Ish?
Yeah, ish, yeah.
Yeah. Guess your impressions of joining the 49ers and what you're getting yourself into.
It's just first class organization in every way. I think it just really starts with Kyle and John, what great teammates they are to one another, and just meeting Jed and Dr. York, ownership, just so impressed with them, and I think teaming up with our personnel department and seeing what a talented group that is, and our coaching staff's been really, really fun to work with, and and the best part is teaming up with these players. Once they got back in the building, it's been fun to get started on all the hard work.
Did you know much about Kyle and John? I guess was the exhibition, that preseason scrimmages a couple of years ago, was that where you kind of hit it off
Kyle.
with them first,
Yeah, Kyle and I have gotten to know each other, I think, a lot better over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
I think we've gained so much respect for one another, having to face each other, and really, ever since I've been in the NFL, we've played against Kyle in one shape or form, whether it's been a regular season game, practiced with him a couple times when I was with Denver,
Yeah.
and then when I was with the Chargers. So I've seen this program grow. It's something that John and Kyle and I talked about, and very excited to get to work with those guys.
How much did you know about Nick Sorensen coming into this, and how has your relationship with him developed?
Yeah, I knew a lot about Nick through the people that he was with in Seattle. He's actually a Clevelander at heart. That's where his family is. So we share some common ground there in Northeast Ohio. But really got to know him through the guys in Seattle. And then actually after he left Jacksonville, visited with him about our special teams coordinator job. So kind of known of each other. And then when this opportunity came about, I think there was a lot of common ground. And really, it's been really fun to work with him so far.
What is the common ground between the stuff that you've run and the stuff that they've run here now for many years? Do you see a blend that's natural, or is it a little more work to try to get some of those elements into this?
Yeah, I think just a lot of common ground. A lot of respect for how they play defense, both when he was in Seattle and then certainly here in San Francisco, and then have a lot of respect for his experience as a player too. I think he has a lot of foundation in pro football, and so. This is a group of guys. Obviously since Kyle and John have been here, having to face them so many times, but set a high standard defensively, and being on the other side of it, certainly a group of guys that we always respected. So I think the team up, I think our backgrounds are more similar than different, and but they're also complementary, and so it's been fun to work with Nick and all this group of coaches on defense, because it's a very, very talented staff, and really awesome group of guys.
Can you sketch out what your role is? What you and Nick have decided kind of what your role is going to be, like during the season, during the week, during the game?
Yeah, we'll work through all the seasonal rhythm stuff, but I think I'm going to be here for Kyle and John where they need me to be. I think it'll be kind of a combination of all my roles in the NFL, but I'm going to be working primarily on defense, and but I'll be with a lot of the different position groups, mostly in the secondary, and then working with Kyle closely on a lot of other things.
Saw you throwing the ball in the defensive skills, and that's Kyle's thing. How did that work out?
Oh man, I just a former college quarterback, trying to spell the the starter, if he needs a break, but that's I think from afar, that's something that I think is a really good aspect of what Kyle does, is connect with the defensive group of guys, and what better way to do it than make them feel good throwing some interceptions.
How much of a sounding board have you already been for Kyle? Like former head coach, somebody who's been through some of these things. He talked about you in the draft process too. Have you been able to kind of just sit down with Kyle and talk about concepts, about personnel ideas?
Yeah, I think that's been the aspect, I think, of the job that I've enjoyed the most, is just teaming up with Kyle and John, and doing what's going to be best for the Niners, and that encompasses a lot of different things. But if he needs something, then we've been able to connect and kind of collaborate on that, and that's a big part of the role that I was excited about.
What was the attraction of coming here as opposed to maybe an opportunity to call defenses somewhere else? Why the role that you picked?
I think the role is really about the people. I think the place, that's where most good decisions happen, if you can kind of center on those things. So just a lot of respect for Kyle from afar, and I think we've gotten to know each other a lot better over the years, and I think there's just a common ground in how to coach and lead a football team, and having to face this team over the years, you know, I felt like it would be a good opportunity for myself and my family, and hopefully, you know, be able to, you know, help this team be as good as it can be.
Was the interview process unique as far as Kyle hinted that there was a lot of discussions? Was that about finding that common ground philosophically during the interview process?
I think it was just more or less, you know, ironing out the role. I think, again, like a lot of respect from afar, and then coming here and meeting with Kyle and John, it was just, you know, probably determining the role and the fit. You know, I think that we both had that, you know, that respect for each other from a football standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, but it's just, okay, how's it going to work here? Can it work here? And I think it became clear to all of us that it could, and that would be great, you know, for everybody. And so I'm very thankful for the opportunity, and like I said, I'm excited to get to work.
You said that there's no question who the DC is. It's Nick, obviously. Do you had to talk about that with Nick? Like, I understand I have a reputation. I've been a head coach. I want you to know that you're the DC. I mean, do you have to literally have that conversation?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's been defined by Kyle and John. So, you know, what it's really about is putting a group together that's committed to the Niners. And when I came here, that's certainly what I was committed to. You know, and helping this team in whatever way, you know, Kyle and John saw best. And you know, Nick has been fantastic, and we've got a great group of guys on this coaching staff.
You imagine you're gonna be in the booth because Nick's gonna be on the field.
I don't know that. We'll, you know, I think we'll take the next couple months training camp, and you know, we've got a lot of time to make those.
You were on the field when you were DC. Weren't you?
I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does Leonard Floyd add to his defense, and how does he increase what the defense can do, like schematically, pressure packages, and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, Leonard's one of the top players I've ever coached. You know, I coached him at 2 spots, and I've been able to see his growth and improvement as a player. And I felt like last year he's played as well as he's ever played. And that's saying a lot because he's played at a high level. You know, he's been a part of #1 defenses, you know, wherever he's been, you know, Chicago with the Rams, and then part of a really good group last year in Buffalo as well. So very experienced. And, you know, I think, you know, our organization knew a lot about him before. You know, I think me coming here, filling in, you know, whatever gaps they needed. But, you know, Leonard's resume speaks for itself, and I think he's going to be a great fit for this team and our style of play. You know, and I think teaming up with this group of guys that's already here, excited to see what he can do.
You had to strategize against this offense, I think maybe 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
When they had McCaffrey just coming aboard.
Sure.
I guess what struck you about the offense and maybe how it's transitioned and just what McCaffrey brings to it?
Yeah, well, Christian, you know, he's one of the toughest covers in the league. He's such a complete player. You know, and I think just the challenges, you know, that our offense presents to whatever defense it faces is you have to defend everybody. You know, and I think that's the, you know, I think the strength of their offense is you have to defend everybody, and that they truly have a style of play that you also have to deal with from a technique standpoint, from a physicality standpoint, and you know, and I think Christian, you know, when they made that move, it really allowed their offense to affect the entire field, both in the running game and in the passing game, because he's such a weapon. And you know, I'm excited to team up with him instead of having to defend him.
There's something really dynamic defenses around the league that seem to sort of dictate the game, where it almost seemed like offenses were reacting to what they were doing. I think the Ravens were a good example of that. What are the challenges in trying to install, whether it's post-snap rotation or, you know, exotic blitzes? What are the challenges in trying to get stuff that is kind of complex but make it simple for players to actually understand?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, you got to have enough flexibility within your defense to take advantage of your players, because it starts with your defense. But then, you know, you're always trying to make it tough on the offense post snap. The best players in the league, best coaches in the league, you know, post snap, pre snap, if they know exactly what's happening, then you're multiplying their chances of being successful. And so you got to make them operate post snap. I think, you know, it's such a scheme world now where, you know, every play is on a can, and you know, it's, you know, and there's a reason for that, so that they can, you know, call plays against ideal looks. So you're trying to present different looks, and if you're going to do that, if you're going to play different stuff, whether it's, you know, front coverage pressure, you got to make sure it's tied together. And the only way that's going to happen is if, as a unit, you have command over it. So you got to be able to teach conceptually, and you got to do what your guys can handle. And so But all the scheme in the world isn't going to help you on Sunday. You got to be a technique-oriented team, and that's something that, our program here is known for, is style of play. And so that's what we got to focus on always, is our style of play.
You're going from one Bosa to another Bosa.
Yeah.
I guess, are there similarities that work defensively, or what do you see out of Nick?
Yeah, they're both special players. Very fortunate to coach both of them. I think coming here, I think having to, face Nick, you know what a challenge he is. And I've coached, Khalil Mack, Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, Leonard Floyd, and Nick's always a guy that we would watch. And I think, when I've been other places and we've had to face him, you just know the type of respect that he has in the game plan, that he's a true matchup player and, one of the top players in the league. And I think I've gained a deeper appreciation of his game being here up close. And, Chris has done such a good job with him. And, Nick is, one of the top players in the league.
What do you think is special about Ronaldo Gray as a cornerback in the NFL draft choice?
Yeah, I think he can do all the things that you need DBs to do. He can play man to man. He can play the ball in the deep part of the field. He's a good open field tackler, and then he has position versatility. So I think you saw him match up against elite players in college and be able to defend at a high level, and that's what you want to be able to see from guys outside, is them to defend real guys and have production. And we think his best ball's in front of him.
I believe you had some overlap with Isaac Yiadom in Denver. Yeah, obviously he's been much more productive and played a lot more in the time since then, but were signs of what he ended up doing in New Orleans already present back then?
Yeah, he's a great guy, number one. He's a competitor. I'm really proud of his journey because, the player that I coached in 2019 is not the player that he is now. He has improved so much. He's made it his mission to be an outstanding pro corner. I thought last year he played really, really well for New Orleans. And I think he's excited to team up with this group of guys. A team that is established, defensively that's established, and he's going to be competing, for an opportunity here. But just proud of his journey because he's playing, as well as he's ever played, and he's going to add a lot of depth to our defense.
Is there something enjoyable for you about being able to hone in on defense entirely after a couple years as head coach, where you're sort of spread around in your duties to be able to get back to your roots? Are you looking forward to that? What's that?
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to all aspects of the job. I think all aspects of this role, teaming up with Kyle, teaming up with our defensive staff, getting to know our personnel department. I think I'm just energized by what this organization has to offer. And like I said, I'm just going to try and do the best I can and what they asked me to do.
You talked about needing to tie things together. That was an area that was singled out at the end of last season, that maybe there was a disconnect between the front and the coverage sometimes. How important and how valuable is Fred Warner, and a guy who can do truly anything you ask of him in solving those problems?
Yeah, Fred is, he's one of the top players in the league. He sets a high standard for that position and really for all positions. So his experience, his playmaking, his production, being with him every single day. He's another guy that's improved every single year he's been in the NFL. And, one of those guys, I think when you think of the Niners, you think of Fred Warner. So we're going to continue to try and, center our defense around him. He just makes everybody better. And, he's one of those rare guys in the NFL who, who does his job at such a high level and then has all the intangibles from a leadership standpoint. So really looking forward to working with him.
I think one of the things that people talk about when referring to your defenses is the adaptability on the back end. Somebody like Jalen Ramsey in 2020, and then what you did with Derwin James. With this group of DBs, do you see, and the draftees too, somebody like Malik Mustafa, who obviously played a lot of positions in that Panther package in college, do you see that type of adaptability on this roster to be able to implement some of the stuff that you like?
Yeah, I think John and his group, John Kyle, this group have put together a really deep football team. And I think in the secondary, particularly, we've got a lot of guys who can play corner, a lot of guys who can play inside. Our safeties have flexibility, and I think that's what allows you to have flexibility, is the personnel that do it. So, and our linebackers can all do different jobs too. And, I think some of the acquisitions that we made on the defensive line, both on the edge and inside, that multiplies your ability to be able to do that. So I think, how that, expresses itself is going to, happen in time, this springtime and during training camp. And ultimately, you're trying to put that best product on the field, game one, and then build for a long season. So, but I think we have the pieces to do some nice things.
Have
Yeah,
Kyle and John mentioned to you maybe like a chance to freshen up the defense, which they've run pretty successfully for many years, but pretty much the same stuff? Have they shown an interest in, like, let's bring some of your stuff into what
Well,
we do?
yeah, I think that they've always evolved. I think since Kyle's first season and now, I think the defense has, changed. I think when Chris got here, as the defensive line coach, and I think the way they played up front, and then some of the coverage systems that have continued to improve. I think going from Robert to D'Amico, Steve, and now Nick. I think you've seen a really nice evolution, and that's what's important is that you don't stray too far away from what makes you special. And I think that like I told you guys, the style of play of this team, I think, is what's made it special. And what we want to make sure that we do is, really focus on that, the details of how we play, and then what we play. That'll take shape as we get to know our players here, over the next couple months, because every group's a little bit different. But the staples of what we've played at a high level here, we need to continue to make sure that those staples stay as strong as they have.
One of the staples, one of the identities of this defense for a long time has been a straightforward four-man pass rush. Your background has been much more exotic and diverse with pass rush. Do you think that's something that could benefit this defense?
Yeah, I think that this group, it has, it's known for its four-man pass rush, but, it has a lot of guys who can rush, and I think that's the key of really good rush groups is that you have the threat of a lot of people, rushing the passer, and which is what we have here. So, and that's why they've rushed the passer at such a high level long before I got here. So, we have a good group of front guys, and that's what you want to be able to do in this league, regardless of what you play, what system you run, what coverages you play. If you can rush the passer with four guys, then you're feeling pretty good about your chances. And then when you rush more than that, you're doing it because you want to, not because you have to.
How much of Fangio's old 49 defenses have you looked at over the years?
Oh man, I felt like I coached for the Niners long before I got here. Working with Vic and Ed Donatel, who means a lot to me. Those guys both do. So, I think that's the thing about this football team, and even going back, with Bill Walsh, a lot of people, don't remember that they were a top 5 unit defensively back then too. So, all you got to do is look up, in the Ring of Honor. There's been a bunch of defensive players here who are in the Hall of Fame who've played at a high level, and we've got a lot of high level guys on this team too. And that's why we gotta focus on our guys and be as good as we can be.
When Kyle has talked about bringing in an outside coach, maybe with some different philosophies and melding it, and he's gone back to the example of his dad, Mike, coming over in '92, and back then, I guess George Seifert challenged him to just sit down and study everything that the 49ers did. Did Kyle present a similar challenge to you?
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that, you're excited about, is to join up with a new group of guys that you really respect, offensively, defensively, and in the kicking game, improve yourself, and then, where it fits, experiences that you've had in the past, things that make sense, then, you can apply some things too. And, Mike has been really good to me over the years. Kyle's dad, been a great resource for me, a guy that I have the utmost respect for, a guy that, I think is one of the top coaches to ever coach. And I'm fortunate, that he's, reached out to me and been a resource for me. And now that I'm here, that can take place even more. And so very grateful for that. And, like you said, you're always trying to improve, as a competitor, as a coach. And, I think coming here allows us all to do that.
You've been coaching for